I want to bring in NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, who is outside the courthouse. Danny Savalos is a criminal defense attorney and an MSNBC legal analyst. With me here in studio, Carol Lamb, former Superior Court judge, former U.S. attorney, and an MSNBC legal analyst. Okay, get us up to speed, Vaughn. What's the latest from inside the courtroom?
Chris, we expect them to be heading into lunch break here soon. That is after 2 jurors have been dismissed and excused so far today. Those were individuals who had already been seated, already been sworn, took an oath to go and be a part of this jury for Donald Trump. But what we saw was juror number 2 and juror number 4 over the last hours be excused. And that is where the jury selection process has continued moving forward. At any one time, there are 18 individuals answering questions in the jury box. And I can tell you right now, we are at juror potential number 18 that is going through that 42-question questionnaire. We were almost there, but then that individual seated in seat 18, Chris, I should note, compared Donald Trump to former Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi. At that point, that individual is promptly dismissed. Now, we've already seen more than 60 individuals leave the courthouse here this morning, suggesting that they could not be fair or impartial. I want to let you hear from one of them, Mark, who I talked to a few moments ago.
So I raised my hand because I was certain that even if, and intellectually I would be capable of being unbiased, that because I have satirized Mr. Trump often in my artwork, that this would come to light.
Mark promptly dismissed after saying, as you could hear him say, could not be fair and impartial. And that is what the district attorney's office and Trump's legal team are now trying to find with the other potential jurors that they can seat in those vacant spots. I should note, in just the last 10 seconds, the potential jurors have been dismissed to lunch here. We now officially have 18 individuals in the jury box who have finished that 42-question questionnaire. After the lunch break, it'll be up to the DA's office and Trump's legal team to go through voir dire, where they'll be able to ask direct questions of each of those individual jurors. So we expect some progress here this afternoon, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Vaughn. So, Danny, let's talk about these 2 dismissed jurors out of 7. I mean, is that common, or do you think past history, and maybe more so, any time they have between being selected and opening arguments gives them time to worry about what this might mean for their lives, and we might see more of this?
It's both common and uncommon. You do lose jurors from time to time. After all, that's why you have alternate jurors, because if you lose a juror during trial, then someone else can step in and fill. It's uncommon because of the way we're losing these jurors. You don't normally lose a juror during jury selection while that juror is waiting for the trial to start. That's unusual. But in a case like this, because there's so much media attention, and a juror, like we've seen, went home, maybe had second thoughts about serving on a jury and the duties and obligations it would impose on that juror, they came in before the trial even began and said, I don't think I can do this. And I think this is actually a good thing. I think you want to get rid of jurors who may be on the fence early on so you can fill them in during this much more convenient process. Far better to lose a juror right now than be in the middle of trial. And we've all been there. I know Judge Lamb has probably been there, where you're down to your last alternate. Everybody's terrified you're going to lose the juror, and then you're going to be out of a jury, and you're going to have to declare a mistrial, start all over again. Got to get this done now. I think it's tedious. It's procedurally difficult, but better that these come up now rather than later.
I think there are a couple of different, shall we say, pods here, right? One is, Carol, what happened here? You know, I slept on it. I thought, I'm not really sure I can be fair and impartial, even though I said I could. And that kind of makes it easy, right, for both sides and the judge. They say, if you can't be fair and impartial, you can't be a juror. It's another thing to worry about what this might mean for your life. One of the last things Judge Merchan said to prospective jurors before they went to lunch: do not read or listen to any newspapers, TVs, etc. Don't tell anyone where you live or who your employer is. There are real concerns about these jurors and whether or not they would be safe if it becomes known who they are. You've been a judge. How does Judge Merchan handle this, and how big of a concern do you think it is towards seating a full jury?
Right. Chris, Judge Merchan has a big task in front of him right now, and he's doing a good job at protecting the jurors and also making sure that Donald Trump receives a fair trial. But let's face it, this is a trial unlike any other in many respects. Now, there have been many trials in this nation's history where jurors have cause to fear for their safety and the judge has cause to fear for their safety.
A mob trial, for example.
A mob trial, a drug trial, a cartel trial. And we've already seen that it's not unprecedented for jurors' identities to be held secret, probably not from the parties, but at least from the public. So that's important, but it's not unprecedented. But the combination of factors here, the intense publicity, the divisive nature of this presidential race, the divisive nature of Donald Trump does make this a very unusual case. And Judge Merchan has to balance all of those factors in deciding how he's going to select this jury.
Yeah, we just saw Donald Trump there moving, but I wonder, is it even harder now than it was a year ago, 5 years ago for sure, just because technologically, if you want to track somebody down, let's just be honest, you don't necessarily have to be an IT expert to do that. Your information is out there.
Yeah, you don't. And in truth, I've been contacted by people at my home address because they were able to just find it on the internet. And I think that is something that is relatively new, at least in the last decade or two. This phenomenon simply didn't exist. And the jurors and the judge have to deal with the fact that not only is public information much more accessible to people just by surfing the internet, but also the jurors' past histories, their own social media is now available for everybody, and things that they may have forgotten or things that they perhaps said that they wish they hadn't said are now very easily accessible to those who are picking a jury.
Yeah, we've seen how social media and some postings have played into this already. So, Danny, let's talk about the makeup of the jury pool so far. The New York Times is reporting before jury selection began, Mr. Trump's lawyers want a jury that includes younger black men and white working class men, particularly public employees like police officers, firefighters, and sanitation workers. Prosecutors, conversely, will probably be looking for more educated voters from Democratic neighborhoods, fishing for those who consume news sources like MSNBC. Based on that analysis, is it possible to look at this jury right now and see which one side has maybe a more favorable set of jurors?
Well, sure. Obviously, the people, the prosecution, this is an easier process for them. And look, if this case were in Staten Island, it would be completely reversed. I mean, in a way, we have a very easy metric for determining what jurisdictions would be better for Trump and worse than Trump. It's voting results. You don't normally have that. But generally, lawyers have an idea of what kinds of folks are in a particular jurisdiction. And Manhattan is a very different culturally jurisdiction than, say, Staten Island. And normally, working class folks, people who have ties to law enforcement, those are people that defense attorneys like me do not want on the jury at all costs. They are for cause strikes. You don't even need to use peremptories most of the time. So there is a bit of a reversal here in that Donald Trump wants people that traditionally criminal defense attorneys do not want on the jury. And probably to some degree, the people are looking to seat jurors that ordinarily they might not want on a jury themselves. But ultimately, I mean, jury selection is a science the way astrology is a science. It's not reliable. Lawyers will tell you they have it down pat. They're making it up because really at the core, your case depends on your facts. And you can make some generalizations about jurors and a particular jury pool, but ultimately the case will come down to the facts. And I'll just say this also, two things. Number one, I think the self-selection process has actually been a good one. It's worked here because you've actually seen some jurors who might even be inclined a little towards Trump, which I think shocked a lot of people. So I think that process has worked very well for Judge Merchan. It's a good thing that half of the jurors, that roughly 50 out of 100, say, I'm out of here, and that they self-select. That means the process is working. So it may take a little while. Frankly, it's moving much faster than anybody would have expected, but it's marching along. Also, one other thing I would say, two lawyers Yes, normally lawyers do not get on a jury. There's no exclusion, but normally one side or the other strikes them. And the reason for that is maybe they're concerned that they might be too closely related to that practice. But we're in Manhattan. There are a lot of lawyers in Manhattan. So you're probably going to get a lawyer in the jury pool. And ultimately, you know, again, you can't make generalizations based on the job. There you see right there. We have a couple different people from different walks of life. And ultimately, you just got to go with your gut instinct more than you do generalizations about who people are, where they come from, what group they're in.
We're out of time, Carol, but let me ask you really quickly. Judge Merchan set opening arguments for Monday. Do you think that's likely to happen?
It's looking less and less likely now. Chris, I don't think Judge Merchan expected to lose two of the jurors he had already seated and sworn. That's highly unusual, as Danny said. He still has a hearing with respect to information that the government wants to bring in if Donald Trump takes the stand. And so I think this is looking more like we're going to go into later in the week, next week, before opening statements.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.